Welcome to the feature match area here at Grand Prix Brussels, ladies and gentlemen. We have round number 3 coming your way between Thomas van der Pelt and Wouter Noordzij. Thank you very much. Thomas van der Pelt, fresh off a Pro Tour top 4 last weekend in Minneapolis at Pro Tour 25th anniversary. Big things expected from the Belgian on home soil here, Simon.
Yep, and we do get to see Turbofog in action, but it is up against White-Blue Gift, and that's kind of an interesting thing because it isn't a combo aggro deck, so it has to win with creatures, which means Fog is good against it. At the same time, White and Blue have a lot of ways of stopping the Turbofog plan.
Strategic planning kicking things off here for Van der Pelt. Very impressed by the Belgian performance at the Pro Tour last weekend there, Simon. We saw these guys start off the tournament. The team that Van der Pelt was on there with Christophe Gregoire and Branko Neyring. They started off at 0-2, fell to 2-3, and then didn't lose until the semi-finals. An incredible performance. Really dug very deep indeed and scored themselves a very hefty payday as a result, as we see Charter Course now for Van der Pelt to continue to sculpt that perfect hand, as Noordzij does, well, not too much, to be honest.
And Thomas actually has the potential for a turn 4 Godpharaoh's Gift. However, no creatures to reanimate just yet.
So nothing doing as it stands. We'll see if he can find some way to take advantage of the 7-drop artifact. But in the meantime, here is Spring, an overcosted Rampant Growth now for Noordzij.
Actually, an interesting choice. There are just a few flex spots in the Turbofog deck, and actually how you ramp and with which cards you ramp is still not 100% decided. Gift of Paradise, of course, the first choice, and then different ways of going from 3 to 5 mana.
Mind a fantastic way to leverage some late game mana, especially if you haven't found a way to find the action you need. Often, getting to 6 mana, having huge 7 mana instance to cast in Nexus of Fate, Mind goes along very well with that, just to continue to churn through your deck.
I'm still a bit surprised how Wouter found the deck slots for Spring to Mind, because you are looking at you want a lot of mana sources in your deck. Usually you're playing 26 lands, and then on top of it you need all these combo elements, the planeswalkers and so on.
Search for Azcanta, another very important piece of this particular puzzle here. And we'll see what Van der Pelt is up to. He's going to mill himself. I like this. He's got to find some action. And so with Ipnu Rivulet. Oh, just mono whiskies here for Van der Pelt.
I really wanted to see an Angel of Invention.
Or even just a Champion of Wit. Something at least to put into play. He does have a Refurbish, but look at this. You're a very unhappy chappy. Nothing to put into play. Not going to fire off that Refurbish just yet. Not a huge amount of reason to do so.
Yeah, because he wouldn't really get anything from it. I think he's sitting on a cast out, maybe hoping to snipe a Teferi.
At the very worst, maybe take care of that search for Azcanta here.
Well, I think that's something he would have done already, right?
Okay.
It's kind of tricky. If your opponent doesn't drop Teferi here, you can, of course, go for the search for Azcanta. But the fact that Thomas didn't go for it immediately, I think he's holding it.
Holding it also to keep up Negate, as we see now cast out during the end step. He's going to take care of that search, just like I said. 1 to me, 0 to Simon.
Yeah, to me this looked like this kind of line where you say, okay, he clearly doesn't have Teferi, so I can spend my cast out on search for Azcanta.
So there you saw Nexus of Fate. You may have noticed that it was a proxied version there. This is something that has been offered to all of the players in attendance here at GP Brussels. Due to the fact that Nexus of Fate has only been printed as a foil card, a premium foil card, players do have the option to replace the card with mountains, with an official judge proxied mountain in their decks. Of course, they still have to have the copies of Nexus of Fate, as you saw Noordzij there reveal the copy that he was holding on to. But this is a tournament policy that is open to all the players here today at GP Brussels, and essentially all of these proxied Nexus of Fate, you will see them on mountains. So we see a Teferi negated here. Another search for Azcanta, the follow-up for Noordzij. Van der Pelt keeping himself in it despite the lack of pressure so far.
Yes, the thing is that Nonsai actually took 2 turns in a row here by casting Nexus of Fate at the end of Thomas's turn. So that was a heads-up play that you can only do with instant speed time walk effects.
Another Nexus now as we see Nordzai get the ball rolling.
And that's actually one of the weaker Nexuses you can play. If you cast it in your main phase and the only thing you have in play as a repetitive source of, well, card advantage, if we can call it that, is search for Ascanta, then your opponent should be happy about it.
Yes, more of a desperation Nexus here.
Well, it also doesn't cost you much. It's, let's say, another shot at, for example, finding a Teferi. But if you have the choice, of course, you first want to use your other card draw spells to maybe find something like a Teferi.
Nexus number 3 now as Nordzai takes his 3rd turn in a row. Hasn't done a lot with it, to be honest, these turns. Because, again, think of how different things would be, Simon, had Nordzai a Khan or a Teferi or even a Nissa in play.
In this case, the game would be almost over.
Yes, yes.
So actually, I'm a bit surprised. He's playing against white-blue. He knows it's the gift deck. There is a Godfarer's Gift in the graveyard. Why not just flashback Mind and draw your cards? Maybe play something else. Chart the course. I don't understand why firing off all these Nexus is necessary.
Charter course is going to be the next play here for Nordzai. Yes, a lot of Nexuses played there by Nordzai. We had a discussion about the correct plural.
Wasn't much of a discussion.
For Nexus. Well, I thought I was going to be really smart because I looked it up. Because it's not Nexi. It's definitely not Nexi. But I was like, well, it's a Latin word, so it's probably got some kind of interesting plural. So I looked it up, and I was ready to drop the biggest of knowledge bombs on you. Because, of course, the old school Latin plural is Nexus.
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 Technically correct, yes.
And as I was opening my mouth to form the words to really just let you know exactly who you were dealing with me, having looked up the Latin thing, you slapped me away. You slapped the ball away from the hoop. You completely denied me the slam dunk that I was going to, and you told me what the thing was without even having to look it up because you did Latin in high school.
I did.
So absolutely did a number on me there, Simon.
It's one of the quirks of not even a quirk because Latin is a super structured language, very analytical. So basically there are rules for everything, but some of them are weirder than others.
Little arcane, yeah. So the plural of Nexus, if you want to be one of those, if you want to be a well actually type person,
because most words that end in US do have the plural I. So it's actually correct in most cases.
Nissa Steward of Elements coming down for Nordzai here. The one that irritates me the most, Simon, is octopi, because it's not correct. It's not octopi.
What is it?
Do you know why?
No.
Because octopus is a Greek word. And so the plural is octopodes.
And octopi sounds more like something to eat.
It sounds like a disgusting, invertebrate-based seafood pie, which I don't like the sound of. Here's a refurbish now. This is going to be better for Fonda Pelt as we finally see an Angel of Invention put in the bin. So there's the Godfarer's Gift. Nordzai without anything to say about it.
And that spells trouble for Nissa.
Yeah. Yeah, she comes down even on 4.
She's really exposed to exactly this line of play, which is, frankly, not that difficult to anticipate.
Looks like Nordzai may have been keeping up that 4 mana to activate his Ascanta the Sunken Ruin. He's going to be punished for it as well now, as we see Von der Pelt create a couple of little servos. And in comes the Angel towards Nissa. Does Nordzai have the answer? He's going to look for... What is this?
Root Snare.
That's not what you want to use your fog cards for, but...
The problem of Nordzai was that he really didn't get a Planeswalker onto the battlefield. No repetitive source of card advantage. And now, maybe Nissa and Ascanta are good enough. Because, to be honest, getting to see 4 cards, 6 cards, 7 cards in each of your turns is probably enough to go off. The problem with Ascanta in particular is the amount of mana you need to really chain Nexus of Fate.
Nexus of Fate off the top there with that Ascanta the Sunken Ruin. And now we're going to see Nissa go upstairs as well, Scry 2.
And this is, of course, the correct ordering because you want to make maximum use out of the Scry. You don't want to Scry and then look at the top 4.
So Nordzai has actually looked at what? How many cards so far this turn? 6? Wow.
It
7.
should be, yeah, with the draw step, it should be 7 cards. And now you can see that he's 2 mana away from having an Azcanta activation and Nexus of Fate available, which is often enough to win the game. But the question is,
seeing that many cards is just
but
bananas.
he only has a single card in hand, right? So I think Nissa is going down.
So just Nexus of Fate in hand here for Nordzai.
I think if Nordzai doesn't draw a Teferi, doesn't resolve a Teferi, he's still in big trouble here. And Thomas has to go for the Nissa, no questions about that.
So we're going to see an attack with the... okay, didn't tap that second servo, which is interesting. But going after the Nissa here, I think he forgot to tap his second 2-2. And now here is Haze of Pollen. So it looks like Nordzai actually had quite a couple of cards in hand there, Simon. Just had them so perfectly stacked that we couldn't see. Here's another Minister of Inquiries for Von der Pelt. He needs more creatures in the bin. He needs to be reanimating more and more and more with his God Pharaoh's Gift, because this is looking closer and closer. We're getting closer and closer to the point where Nordzai is going to take over the game.
Absolutely. Like I said, two more mana, or another Planeswalker, and this game is over. And even that one Nissa is already a huge threat.
Here's a big stack of mana. It's going to be this Nexus of Fate now. Another extra turn here for Nordzai.
And here, once again, the sequencing relevant. You play Nexus of Fate, shuffle your library, and then scry. You always want to make sure that your scry has the maximum effect on your future draw steps.
Because we saw Nordzai put 2 cards at the bottom beforehand, so they've been reshuffled in, which is going to be... Well, it's frustrating, but whatever. You know, that's just the price you pay when you're playing with a card like Nexus of Fate. 2 more cards. Here's Chart of Course. Draw 2, discard 1, and finally the Scry 2. If you're interested in some of the lines to take, there's plenty of literature available about this list. There's some Turbo Fog deck guides that have been published, but one of the most impressive ones that I saw was actually just on Twitter. It was Yamwing Chun, the Walking By, who published a very easy to digest guide as to the timing of activating different planeswalkers and when to cast spells, that sort of stuff, just with a few pictures and a few annotated pictures, a couple of diagrams he put on Twitter. So check him out at Walking By. He had a great Pro Tour playing this deck.
I think he played a version with Oath of Teferi.
Might be true.
So he even had to deal with multiple Planeswalker activations in a single turn.
Oh, such a rough life, huh? Rough life. Here's Search for Azcanta. Finds another Nexus of Fate. So this will be the 5th Nexus that's been cast so far. So many Nexus.
Yeah, and they even say GP Brussels on there, so you can't just go to another event.
And just turn up with it, no. The special GP Brussels proxy edition there.
Yep.
Up goes Nissa once again.
Nissa is not Teferi, but she's doing a good job of keeping Wouter going here.
2 cards below decks. Nordzai still a little bit short of chaining the Azcanta into the Nexus here. But getting close. Let's see if Von der Pelt can find another creature to apply a little more pressure. But the number of cards that Nordzai is drawing and the fact that he's got about 500,000 fog effects in his library.
Did Wouter ever flashback the mind?
Don't think
or
so.
is that just in his...
Nope.
Just
hanging out. Just hanging out. Still got it there. So we see Minister of Inquiries number 1. Von der Pelt has activations for days here. Oh, and he's got an angel in his hand. What he wouldn't give for a strategic planning right now. See what he can find now. It's going to be... Okay, this is better stuff. This is much better stuff here as we see Champion of Wits coming back as a 4-4. Draw 4, discard 2. Can't imagine that angel is going to stick around in the hand for very much longer. Unless he wants to cast it this turn.
Sure, why not? I mean, at this point, it's actually almost irrelevant what kind of creatures Thomas has on the battlefield. This is the stage of the game where Wouter is fogging every single turn, not even to protect his life total primarily, but just to keep that Nissa around. And in a lot of matchups in game 1, whether you cast a Nexus for 7 or a fog for 2 mana is approximately the same thing. Because you're just getting a turn off. Your opponent is not doing something for that turn.
Champion of Wits hits the bin there, as we see now. Von der Pelt line up some attacks. You'd have to imagine Nordzai has the answer to it. However, plenty of fog effects in the library for him, or in the deck, I should say.
And he isn't I don't think he's dead if he doesn't have a fog. Thomas has to count here. If he has 23 damage, which I don't think he should, but it's close, then he should attack Wouter just to force the issue. It's a pretty good general rule. If you can attack a player for lethal, you shouldn't go for the Planeswalker instead.
So in for 17, but of course we do have once again another fog effect, Root Snare there. So Nordzo takes 0. And here is the post-combat Angel of Invention from Fondapelt. That one would have sealed the deal had it been played pre-combat and had Nordzo not had a fog effect, but as it goes... Now, of course, for those of you who may be newer to Magic and maybe tuning into perhaps your first GP, well, welcome. By all means, welcome. It's great to have you along. You may be wondering why this deck is called Turbo Fog. Fog is a, well...
the original.
Underappreciated, I would say. Much maligned card. A single green instant. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. And so while the deck doesn't actually play actual literal fog, it plays analogs. Plays Haze of Pollen. Plays Root Snare and the like.
Fog effects. And there was actually, back in the day, there was a deck called Turbo Lands. So you would actually go for not quite infinite turns, but let's say for a lot of value, a lot of land drops, and then cards, any kind of Time Walk effects, and Nexus of Fate, of course, is a Time Walk effect, got so much better. And this is kind of what this deck is doing as well. There have been iterations of this kind of Turbo Fog strategy throughout the years. Some of them, for example, playing with Howling Mines, with the downside of giving your opponents extra cards as well. But before Planeswalkers, you needed to get your cards in other ways. And there we see Horn of Greed, the original enabler for Turbo Lands.
EDH staple these days, but yes, indeed, reminds me of another card, Rite of Flourishing, which was perfect for the Turbo Fog lists, many of which rely on decking as a way to win the game.
And that Rite of Flourishing is actually an homage to exactly those cards, to Horn of Greed, to Exploration, to Howling Mine. Basically, this archetype.
I do like that Howling Mine kept the when it's tapped, it does nothing effect from the olden days of Magic. When artifacts were tapped, they had no effect on the battlefield. And again, Howling Mine, yes, another EDH staple card that I love to play in my EDH decks. It looks like Nordzo is also playing Oath of Teferi here.
Yeah, hasn't had the chance to deploy it. Now Teferi himself is ready to enter the party.
A really important card in this list. Because Nexus of Fate is an instant, it interacts very, very positively indeed with Teferi's +1 ability, because you can often cast the Nexus in the end step.
And it also interacts really nicely with a Gift of Paradise, giving you additional mana when it triggers.
So Oath of Teferi there, you can see. Does a couple of classic Teferi nonsense things there with blinking a permanent and getting you to activate Planeswalkers twice a turn. 18 loyalty on Nissa Steward of Elements. I think that is the most loyalty I've ever seen on well, definitely on her. Perhaps ever on a Planeswalker. And now we see extra activations of both Teferi and Nissa.
And that's just crazy. I've been saying how insane 2 extra mana on a Planeswalker ability, on a positive Planeswalker ability are.
Yeah.
This is going to generate 8 mana in Wouter's end of turn step.
So untap 4 lands, and of course Gift of Paradise comes back in. Rather unintuitively does get attached to a land.
Because it's an aura, yes.
So we see them untap, tap, untap, yep. Gain a bunch of mana, gain a bunch of life. And this is the power of the Turbo Fog list. However, there's a glimmer of genius at the during the end step here.
That's not the Nexus of Fate I was expecting.
Okay.
And where's the mana to Fog?
No, and both cards going below decks as well. I think we've still got an untapped trigger remaining.
Okay.
So scry 2, draw 2.
Then all is good.
I think he did find the Nexus of Fate. I saw a mountain off the top there, which again I think is a proxy for that Nexus of Fate.
Very likely, yes.
Very likely. It's not. There's not a light red splash in the Turbo Fog list.
And I think really it comes down to the use of cast out. Yes, it took out Search for Escanta, but there was a replacement, Search for Escanta the Sunken Ruin, being absolutely vital for this game. And now you have the Planeswalkers that you can't deal with anymore.
So Nordzai, you saw him there firing off that Root Snare in response to the God Pharaoh's Gift trigger. I think Fonderpelt, the chance of him drawing a counterspell were too high for Nordzai to want to risk that fog effect here. Certainly makes things easier as well from a gameplay perspective, as Fonderpelt doesn't even need to count up the attackers here.
Exactly. Sometimes you want to wait as long as possible. For example, if your opponent can use their creatures for something else, or is, for example, waiting to crew something. But often enough, it's just not relevant.
Cast Out goes after the Hero of Dominaria, rather than the oath that he made to the Gatewatch for the Lost and Forgotten, Simon. Interesting choice to make there, though, between allowing Nordzai to activate two Planeswalkers twice, or sorry, two Planeswalkers once, or one Planeswalker twice.
Yeah, I've been actually dreaming of double Ultimate Nissa, attack for 20.
Ooh.
But there are some flyers that are stopping this plan. Otherwise, Vauder could just actually win with Nissa and Oath of Teferi here.
It's not often you see a Planeswalker ultimate twice in the same turn.
And with Nexus of Fate, this is actually lethal.
So 7 mana Nexus of Fate once again, going to be shuffled away. With another turn here. Looks like Nissa might be able to seal the deal. Steward of Elements hasn't had an all-star career in Standard during her time. But certainly getting some work done as we head closer and closer towards rotation, with Guilds of Ravnica coming our way later this year.
Yeah. So Teferi is, of course, the staple Planeswalker in the Turbo Fog list. And then you often see a combination of Karns and Nissa. So I've seen 2 Karns, 0 Nissa, 1 Karn, 1 Nissa, and even 2 Karns, 1 Nissa. I'm actually not sure yet what is the best way to approach this. Nissa has her merits. You can cast her for 3. Scry 2 is relevant. She wins the game with the animated lands. But at the same time, she's not a card advantage engine like the other Planeswalkers.
Khan goes upstairs, Nexus of Fate, Hinterland Harbour, and unsurprisingly, Fonderpelt picks the Hinterland Harbour to go into the hand. However, Nordzai's like, I'll just snag that one straight back here if you don't mind.
Karn is quite good with Oath of Teferi as well. You can just...
You just draw 2. Yeah.
And Vauder is not interested in winning. He's just happy to keep playing.
Mm-hmm. Well, we talk about this, as we see another Nexus of Fate now. We talk about, zero-sum fun. And the idea that if one player is having fun, or all, a percentage of it, then the other person, if you're having like 60% of the fun, the other person's having 40%.
Mm-hmm.
And Nordzai's Turbo Fog list is very much for players who believe that fun is a zero-sum game, that Magic is a zero-sum fun game, and that they want to have, if they're going to have fun, Simon, they want to have all of it, and the opponent should have none of it. And I have to say that having 24 loyalty on your Nissa and a card that is drawing you 2 cards a turn is very close to my approximation of an ideal game of Magic.
Mm-hmm. There could be a few more dice, but ultimately...
And Nordzai right now, just like a house cat, batting a dead mouse across the kitchen floor here, playing with his food.
And Thomas is doing his part, of course.
Yes, playing the dead mouse very well. Khan goes upstairs. Nexus again, and another Glimmer. And it is going to be Nexus of Fate going into the exile zone with a silver counter. I think that's the second activation of Khan, however, so we're not going to see it this turn. But hey, Nordzai at the moment has an extra turn in the bank, so no worries. Glimmer of Genius, scry 2, draw 2. Not sure that energy is relevant for anything here, but diligently kept track of all the same. So Nexus on the top, of course. And draws 2.
Yeah, so
cycles away the card.
so the usual way to victory for the Turbo Fog deck is actually to resolve Teferi, get it up to 8, ultimate it, and then exile all of your opponent's permanents. Now, clearly that doesn't win the game, but effectively ends the game.
Yeah.
Now, Nissa, and that's actually one of her merits, especially if you play on Magic Online, can actually close out games quite quickly by animating lands.
Yes.
Why Wouter is not choosing to do that, I don't quite know.
We often see Nissa turn lands into hasty green beaters, but it's not often that they get to fly. And as flying 5/5 elementals, they can close the game out very quickly. It costs 6 loyalty, so with no Oath of Teferi, Nordzai could crack across, as you said there, for 20 in a single turn.
And then the turn after again.
And again there for another 20, because he can ultimate it. Ultimate Nissa 4 times across 2 turns. There's another Nexus of Fate now.
You can also generate some extra mana with her.
Because they untap the lands as well. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like Teferi impersonation.
Yeah.
You don't get to draw cards, and it costs you 6 loyalty, but
Yeah, getting across for 20 as well is pretty huge. Teferi doesn't really do that. Nissa Steward of Elements, confirmed. Better than Teferi.
this game for sure.
Yes, a little bit. Here's Nordzai again. I think this is his 4th turn in a row, 3rd turn at least. And we see now him certainly taking his time in ending this game.
Well, if your goal is to never be in the feature match area ever again, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the argument also is, if Nordzai wants to make the most of the opportunity he's been given.
Camera time.
You got it. He's taking advantage of his 15 minutes. Well, not 15 minutes, is it?
50 minutes.
50 minutes of fame. Going to take advantage of every last second of him here as we see Teferi, the hero of Dominaria. His 1-2-3 punch of Planeswalkers has been assembled. And is this, what could this be? 7 mana. Oh, I don't believe it. It's Nexus of Fate.
So, is there ever a point where it's just absolutely certain that you are infinite? You have to have, let's assume you have 4 Nexus of Fate in your deck.
Okay.
And you have a bunch of Planeswalkers and all these Planeswalkers. Let's ignore the Oath and an Escanta the Sunken Ruins. Then in theory, if you're, the Nexus could all be at the bottom of the deck, right?
Nordzai there, scrying 2. Only looks as far as the top card. Doesn't even look at the second card before deciding he likes it, the one that's on top. Go on, sorry.
No, that was it, basically. It's not over until it's over.
On a technical level, at least, as we see Nexus of Fate hit the exile zone there, thanks to Khan. And Fondapelt still getting to, it's just every now and again, make a little decision here and there. Still involved in the game in a very, very superficial manner there, Simon. And Nordzai, Nexus of Fate, take another turn. And this deck really, at this point, it's academic, essentially, as to who has won this game. I'm not 100% sure why the players are still playing, seeing as Fondapelt has a very, very slim chance of winning.
No, Thomas can't win this game. It's up to Wouter to actually demonstrate that he can win, how he can win, but also how much time it's going to take him. Because Thomas is sitting there, he has active Minister of Inquiries, and he's just saying to himself, look, if you don't kill me, I'm not going to concede.
How much of a difference do the Minister of Inquiries make here?
Well, it depends how careless Wouter is, of course. He definitely doesn't have to risk anything, but if he casts more card draw spells and keeps plussing Teferis and Karns, suddenly he might be sitting there without a library. I don't think that will happen if he's careful enough, because he will always be able to have a Nexus to cast.
Yeah. Because the Nexus will always be able to be put back in his library once he's been the milling is finished.
Exactly.
Yes. Still, it does add an unusual wrinkle to this matchup here. It's not often that we see mill effects like this.
So that's actually really cool if you play against white-blue control, and the white-blue decks often only play 4 Teferis as their win condition.
Yeah.
You can't beat Turbo Fog by with Teferi recursion. You are the white blue control deck. How do you beat me? You've total control of the game.
Because it'll just be a draw.
I just keep 7 cards in my hand.
Yeah.
One of them being Nexus of Fate.
Yeah.
And then if I would get milled out,
Just
I discard
that
I discard the Nexus.
Okay. But then the blue-white player also doesn't get milled out.
No, nobody gets
It's a
milled
draw.
out. It's a draw.
It's a draw.
The question is only at which point is it a draw?
That's insane. Well, here's finally some action with a construct token. Don't know how much we're going to be able to get done with it, but all the same. Nordzai has decided he's had enough of drawing cards. So Khan starts to tick down. Pretty impenetrable board state right now, but it looks like Nordzai does have it more or less locked up here. Von der Pelt is doing his best to offer a little bit of resistance. Nordzai is going to have to walk something of a tightrope with these Minister of Inquiries. Maybe not a tightrope, maybe a tight plank. Not going to be too difficult for him to fall off if he doesn't want to. But all the same.
It's almost impossible to lose this game. But if you really want to, you can.
If you really choose to. All right, well, here's the Teferi emblem now. So Nordzai can start to exile permanents of Von der Pelt. And that's going to really speed things up here. The Teferi emblem, really the only element that was missing to ensure, there was... The game was locked up in a logistical sense as well as a figurative one.
Yeah, what I don't like about this from Nordzai's perspective is that he actually benefits from more time on the round clock.
Okay.
So now imagine this game ends in 2.5 minutes. Thomas wins game 2 in 10 minutes. Then suddenly you as the Turbo Fog player don't have sufficient time to win game 3.
So you're saying that Nordzai perhaps could have done a little bit more to end this game faster?
Yes.
Or should have tried to at least, okay.
That it is in his in a tournament setting, in a GP setting, it's in his interest to actually win the game and not just go infinite.
Well, we've certainly seen the deck put through its paces this time around in any case. And I'm sure we'll be seeing a little bit more of it throughout the weekend because, of course, it is the breakout deck. Had a reasonable performance at the last Pro Tour, although not so many people played it, but the ones who did seem to do pretty well with it. And right now, we're seeing it take out this game nice and easy. Nordzai never really looking to be in trouble once the lock was assembled. And Von der Pelt, realizing the jig is up, is going to pack up his cards, and we're going to go to game number 2.
Thomas is a real master with this white-blue gift deck. I don't know how good it is in the current metagame. Because, like we saw here, sure, he got off a negate and a cast out, but he was not really in the game. Don't know if it's much better against Mono Blue Storm. So I'm not sure if White Blue Gift is still the deck to play.
Well, did things get any better after board? Let's have a look at what Von der Pelt is working with in his sideboard here. 3 copies of Jace's Defeat. A lot of 2-ofs here. Baffling End, Fragmentize, Lyra Dawnbringer. Negate, Sorcerer Spyglass, all of these 2-ofs. And then a single Cleansing Nova in addition to a 1-of Thopter Arrest.
Yeah, Jace's Defeat is, of course, really good.
Easy.
And Sorcerer's Spyglass is one of the scariest cards for Turbo Fog.
Is that right?
Sorcerer's Spyglass on Teferi is huge.
Okay.
If you cannot activate your Teferis, the Turbo Fog deck is... It's not even half as good. It's like, I don't know. It operates on 20% maybe of its real power.
This may be the reason for some of the cards in Varton Nordzai's deck here, as we see double Manglehorn and a Reclamation Sage. They're purely for the Sorcerer Spyglasses?
It's also to shore up the Mono Blue Storm matchup a little bit. But this is the card you're scared about, except for like very specific cards. Like Insult to Injury, but it is a colorless card that every deck has access to. That you're scared about.
It's the answer that is the most generally played answer that you're the most scared of seeing.
The most generic card
round in, round
that anybody could have.
So that's the answer for those disenchant effects. There we have Baral as a 2-of as well. 2 copies of Carnage Tyrant, Carney D, and then 2 Jace's Defeat as well. 2 JCDs there. 1 of Cast Out, 1 of Reclamation Sage, 1 of Settle the Wreckage, and
Settle the W's.
Setley Dubs?
Setley Dubs.
Setley Dubs, yep.
No,
Casty O's?
Setley Views. It's not Dubs.
It's W.
Double. I get it. I didn't get it the first time.
That's all right. I mean, it is. There are so many problems with W. There are so many problems, Simon. First of all,
it's double V,
it's
right?
double V. It's not a U. There's no way that it looks like a U. I mean, unless you're
first grader.
Yeah,
maybe.
Exactly. It's not a U. And then secondly, there are. I mean, every other language has a better name for this letter.
That's true.
It's just V in
German.
But that's because you have V called vowel, which I think is very silly. I have to say, I think it's very silly. But then also, you call Y upsilon.
That's great. That's a great name for a letter.
For a letter, upsilon.
I think that's probably Greek.
It comes from Greek epsilon, yeah, but it's nothing to do with it. I mean, and the letter Y is totally useless in German anyway because it's the same.
It's not even part of our original alphabet.
No, and it makes the same sound as
just
U.
Because we have to use all these English words.
You don't have to. You choose to
describe the world.
Oh, when a computer was invented, the German language bureau got together. It's like, oh, what do we call it? Should we think of a new name for it like the French did, an ordinateur? No. Let's just copy the English name. That's fine.
Okay. Let's see what happens
4 copies
here.
of negate also in the sideboard.
That's good.
Just
counter everything.
I just wanted to point that out as well.
Negate everything.
Negate everything. Neggy Didn't really come together, that one. Let's see how things go in post-board games. You mentioned you think the Godfarer's gift list is a little on the back foot in this matchup. I don't know how much that's going to change post-board here.
Oh, I think you're still on the back foot, and that's just... From looking at the deck list, you have... I would say 1/3 of your deck is just not relevant to the matchup. Even the most powerful thing you do is you Godfarer's gift out Angel of Invention, and that's just something that Turbofog doesn't care about.
So these players off to the races now. We'll see how things pan out. Looks like Von der Pelt doesn't have any early plays here. His first one, a champion who withdraw 2, discard 2. You can play that. You can see, wow, he's playing at a very swift clip here, which I like to see. He's hungry. He knows he has to win these games quickly.
Well, if he wanted more time, he could have conceded. So,
okay, you're not going to give him too much credit there.
No, if he doesn't manage to finish this match, it's on him.
No turn 3 play here for Nordside. No Gift of Paradise or Spring to Mine or anything like that. So a slower start for both players, it has to be said.
So the key to what to look out for is the Sorcerer's Spyglass in Thomas's hand.
Okay.
And I wouldn't be surprised to see him delay that until he has counter backup. But no, he just plays it out.
So he's going to cast the Sorcerer's Spyglass. Second one binned here and immediately gets negated. So that's both of his Sorcerer's Spyglasses in the bin. He does have the option, however, Simon, to bring them back.
Refurbish them.
With Refurbish.
Love it.
He broke it. So rather than bringing back the Godfarer's gift and get in for 6 with an Angel of Invention, just bring back that Sorcerer's Spyglass. Saucy S?
Yeah. Still, I'm a bit surprised because I value the Spyglass super highly in this matchup. I'm a bit surprised that Thomas just ran it out there.
Especially with negate in hand here.
You can just, yeah, exactly. You tap 2 mana, you put the Spyglass on the stack, and you negate, and that's it. And then if your opponent counters back, you protect it. If not, you have backup for whatever answer they have or whatever other Planeswalker they might play.
Here's a Refurbish, and it's going. Look at this. Next level players with Thomas Von der Pelt here. Sorcerer's Spyglass from the Refurbish. Who'da thunk it? Going to check out the contents of the hand here of Nordside, and Teferi, the hero of Dominaria, has been spotted off the starboard bow.
And that's almost good game right there. It might not look like it, but shutting down Teferi is so huge that now you need Search for Ascanta, Karn, or Nissa to even have a shot at looping Nexus of Fate. That Nexus of Fate, by the way, you never want to have in your opening hand.
I guess the problem here is if Nordside finds a Manglehorn, finds a Reclamation Sage. He's not playing any copies of Dissenter's Deliverance, but that's another card that is going to deal with Spyglass and the like.
Most of them are weak to negate, except for the Manglehorn, for example.
Yeah, and the Reclamation Sage, yeah.
I also don't understand why that Teferi is getting cast.
Well, it's immediately getting eaten up by that Angel of Invention here.
Was Vauda maybe hoping that Thomas would ignore it because there's a Spyglass on it? That's a little bit optimistic.
A little bit optimistic there. especially as there's not a huge amount of hand disruption for Fontepelt. The Teferi could have hung out in the hand for a long time here. Nordzai grinding his way towards 7 mana. He's got it now. Does have the Nexus in hand as well. But at this stage, just an overpriced Explore. Ships the turn. Back
Yeah,
to Fontepelt
this is
here.
actually the correct way to apply the Nexus of Fate. You don't use it as an Explorer, but you use it to take 2 turns with full mana
Yes.
in a row.
Yes, it being an instant really is a game changer here.
At the same time, I don't think that Thomas should negate it. I think Thomas has to really focus on the real threats.
Godfarer's Gift going to bring back another Minister of Inquiries here as a 4/4 now. Or a 5/5 even, thanks to the Angel of Invention. Let's get across and line up some attacks, says Fontepelt. Just slam and then jam with the entire team. Nordzai, we know he's got no fogs in hand. Oh, he does. He's drawn a Haze of Pollen, Simon. He's just going to take it here. What do you think about that?
I like it. He knows that he needs a Planeswalker. And if this is not a lethal attack, he can just wait with the fog until it's absolutely necessary.
Let's see if Fontepelt has an answer to this Nexus of Fate here. If he's got a Jace's Defeat or a Negate, you'd think that might be just about that. See if he can find an answer. Nordzai now. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana. Yep. Nexus of Fate. Does have the Negate there, Fontepelt. Going to be very difficult for Nordzai from this position onwards.
Yeah, but still, I don't love it. I think you should actually just give your opponent those extra manas and the 1 additional card draw, because having negate backup is worth so much. Unless, of course, you have another counter, then it's fine.
Fontepelt, 1 card in hand here for him. Nordzai draws for the turn. Finds land.
No, that's not going to cut it.
So Haze of Pollen, land here. Back to Fontepelt.
If this had been a Karn, there definitely would have been a shot.
And it looks like we had the... Wow, he does have the double fog in the face of a counterspell here. Fontepelt going to activate his Minister of Inquiries, try to get even more on the board.
I think he's looking for a Champion of Wits just to refuel his hand,
Yeah,
maybe
try to
find something else.
Find some more counter magic here. You can imagine that he would have brought in full 5 copies of the counterspells, Jace's Defeat and Negate here.
But Wouter is actually out of life draws. He has 0 cards in hand, so I don't... Okay, sure, there are probably some theoretical sequences you can make up, but...
Nexus of Fate off the top here.
It actually doesn't start with that. It starts with something that lets him draw multiple cards and then fog and stay alive that way.
It's going to be tricky for Nordzai to do it, and we've seen the work done by the Sorcerer's Spyglass here. It essentially was the hinge upon which the entire game turned, and we are going to go now to game number 3 after Fontepelt picks up a very swift victory after Sorcerer's Spyglass being refurbished, Simon.
Yep. Maybe explains why Thomas didn't mind having those put in the graveyard. One can argue about, like, let's say the sequencing of the counter magic, but in the end, he got the Spyglass onto the battlefield. That was important, and he still had all the counter magic as backup. So it worked out really well for him.
I wonder what other ways there would have been for him to play around or play with the cards, because he had the Sorcerer's Spyglass, had the Negate, and then a Refurbish as well. It seemed very unlikely that he wouldn't have a Sorcerer's Spyglass hit the battlefield at some stage.
And that's... then it's actually better to still have the counter magic, right? Because otherwise you have Refurbishes that don't really do anything to protect you from the Turbo Fog deck.
So tell me about... I have to say, I'm not fully across the reason that Sorcerer's Spyglass is just so huge here, because it shuts off a Teferi, sure, but then they've still got plenty of other Planeswalkers, they've got plenty of other ways to churn through their deck, gain incremental advantage thanks to Nexus of Fate, so why is it so important?
So the main reason is mana. Teferi generates +1 card each turn and +2 mana.
Okay.
So it's the perfect combination for the perfect combo card with Nexus of Fate. Otherwise, you need to find ways that you can spend 7 mana each turn and still generate an advantage at the same time. And Search for Ascanta is not good enough. Ascanta costs 4 mana total. Nissa doesn't draw additional cards, and Karn is, let's say, a lot worse than Teferi, but of course still your second best bet in that situation. So the problem is not to find cards that generate an advantage, but to actually apply them while still tapping, for example, 7 mana for for Nexus of Fate.
So this game 3 now well and truly underway. We'll be able to check in and look at what exactly is going on with these players. Search for Azcanta, the early play here for Nordseye. Looks like a Minister of Inquiries has already begun to stock the yard here for Fontapelt. But a 4-mana Planeswalker is going to be met with a negate. Looks like a mismatched negate as well. Well, oh, it is. Oh my goodness me. Thomas Van der Pelt, what are you doing, mate?
Once again, both Spyglasses in the graveyard, but we know about the Refurbishes.
We know the tech. In comes the Minister now for 1. Taste it, says Van der Pelt. And if he finds a Refurbish, he's got some live cards to bring back. Forest hits the bin now to Nords. I see both players playing at a pretty quick clip here.
To be fair, both of these players have not been playing slowly at all. It was just the amount of time it took to finish game 1 was the main problem with the clock.
So there's the third negate. That is the full number that Fontapelt has. 2 in the sideboard, 1 in the main.
Thomas has had really, really good draws. Getting access to all his counter magic here and also finding the Spyglass. Okay, this time only in the graveyard, but very, very relevant. But still, Teferi resolves, and now we will see why Teferi is such an important piece to the puzzle.
One of the things that was very quickly identified about Teferi and the fact that he can untap 2 lands is that this gives him a de facto way to protect himself, because you can then leverage that 2 mana to cast interactive spells. For example, Seal Away, I think, was the most important one to come out of Dominaria.
Or the very interactive spell, Root Snare.
This is what I was going to come to now. The next situation here is that Nordseye, the Turbofog deck played by Nordseye means that Teferi's untap ability enables... It's not really a broad answer, but it's a way of protecting Teferi the turn that it comes down from any number of attackers.
You basically build your deck in a way to utilize instants that just work well with Teferi. And that is counter magic, that is Settle the Wreckage, anything that really benefits from that untap ability.
I like what Van der Pelt did there. Despite the fact that Root Snare had been cast, he still attacked with the Angel of Invention so as to turn on that Charter Course and draw 2.
Always attack.
Always attack. Attack, attack, attack. Nordseye with an active Teferi. And just as you said, Simon, this is going to start to pull him further and further ahead now. Here's a Search for Azcanta activated, or sorry, the Sunken Ruin, I should say, and Nexus of Fate off the top.
Yeah, and Walter is 1 mana away from casting that Nexus, I believe.
Right now.
Unless he has a land drop left.
Looks like...
He needs to survive 1 more turn with his Fog effects. Oh, aggressive.
So 4 mana now. And we're going to see Khan into the battlefield as well. Oh, dear, okay. So Teferi will untap, but 2 lands. But Nordseye does need a Fog effect.
No, he has a Fog effect. I thought he even had 2 Fog effects in his hand.
Okay.
But if you have 2 Fog effects, then you have to leave open both of them, because now you're risking everything against a single piece of counter magic.
Well, the thing is here, as we see Haze of Pollen played by Nordseye, if he's been keeping track of the negates that Van der Pelt has burnt through, he's burnt through 3.
Well, but negate is not the only counter that you can face, right? And you don't know the deck list.
Well, what else?
Sure, against White Blue Gift, there is not too much. You're right.
I think after you've seen 3 negates, not 100% by any means, but if you've seen 3 negates in the yard, I think that's when you can start to take further risks with playing around not playing around counter magic, I should say. Here's 7 mana.
Okay, yeah, I get your point. My argument is actually a little different. If you can win for sure without exposing yourself to that negate, then you should take the line that is safe to negate.
So Van der Pelt there drew a lot of cards. Looked like, I hope it was just 5 there. I think you picked up thanks to the Angel of Invention pumping the power of the champion. So draw 5, discard 2. Not a bad day in the office now. Here's Nexus of Fate for Nordseye.
That looked like an upkeep Nexus of Fate.
Yeah.
Just maximizing now the chances that you redraw it.
Wow. Time Walk's being played all over the place. We've seen him played in the end step, in the upkeep, declare attackers.
Yeah. Now, Karn searches for Nexus of Fate. Land is also very good because soon we will reach the 11 mana mark.
And there is another Nexus of Fate.
Actually,
off the top.
we don't even need the 11 mana mark. We only need the 9 mana mark because of Teferi.
Because Teferi can untap the Gift of Paradise land, yes. 4 more cards off the top here. Looks like it's going to be Negate. Nordzai drawing further and further ahead here, Simon. Looking good for him.
And you know which stage of the game we're entering?
Tell me.
The stage where Wouter has to demonstrate that he can win the game in 7.5 minutes.
Because there's no incentive here for Vonderpelt to concede.
No incentive that I can see, no.
The fact that Vonderpelt...
If you're hungry or need to use the restroom...
Mm-hmm. Maybe he's hungry for victory instead of hungry for food, though.
He's going to stay hungry.
He's not. Yeah, he's not going to say. We're not going to sate that particular appetite this time around. But no, let's talk about the real life tournament implications for those of you viewing who may not exactly understand how this situation works in a high level tournament. Simon, Vonderpelt in this situation just doesn't have to draw, or doesn't have to concede. He can play to the draw.
Yeah, it's actually not even in his hands. He's basically just watching now.
Mm-hmm.
And Wouter has to demonstrate that he can keep the loop going, which, technically speaking, he will. This back of the magic card, by the way, is the number of extra turns that Wouter has assembled.
At the moment, just one. So Vonderpelt here in the grandest traditions of the English cricket team seems to be playing for the draw. And we'll see if that's going to work out for him here, because again, no reason to concede, and Nordzai does have to demonstrate that he can win the game, as you say, Simon, in 6 minutes.
I know nothing about cricket, so I don't even know if that was a burn or
Definitely a burn. Definitely a burn.
Good.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Test cricket?
Oh, I'm familiar with the English and competition in general.
Yes. Generally, they're very good at inventing games, not so good at winning at them. But a test match in cricket can last for 5 days and still be a draw. And the English are... Well, I mean, generally the arch rivals of Australia... The thing is, I can't really... I'm actually going to stop talking about cricket at the moment because Australian cricket is in a very dark spot right now, so I don't have the usual gloating rights, even against a team like the English. To be very clear... put myself on the record here as an Australian cricket fan, I'm deeply, deeply ashamed of the conduct of the Australian cricket team recently, and so I've realised that sort of going into bat for them right now is not where I want to be. In any case, Nordzai, active planeswalkers, he's got constructs on the assembly line, negate in hand, and he's not playing fast enough. He needs to quicken his pace here, Simon.
Yeah, and this is the slowest kill you can go for. The make a bunch of constructs and exile all your permanents takes a lot of time. It's a lot of fun on Magic Online when the clock is around that 4-minute mark and already ticking. Is it ticking red already? I don't know if that's
at
5 or 3.
No, at 5 it starts ticking red. Yeah, it's very different on Magic Online because, of course, it uses a chess clock, which is functionally impossible in a real-life game of Magic. But you just sit there, you're like, yeah, no worries. Go and get a 7-Up out of the fridge, sit there, scroll through your Twitter feed.
But like you were saying, this is a high-level tournament. This is a GP. Thomas Vanderpelt is here to win as many matches as possible, and I wouldn't concede in this spot if my Turbo Fog opponent cannot demonstrate a win in time. And this is what I was alluding to in Game 1. Wouter could have won 10 minutes earlier, for sure.
So many of you around the world may have noticed that Nordzai is playing with proxied Nexus of Fate. Nexuses of Fate. Players have been issued with official judge proxies at this tournament. So everyone who's attended GP Brussels has been offered the opportunity to play with proxy versions of Nexus of Fate due to the fact that it is only been printed in foil. There is no non-foil version of the card.
And we should mention that this is specifically for those cards only.
Those cards.
So it's not for any foils or any cards.
No.
There are very specific rules about which kind of cards you can get those proxies for.
So there has been an error with the clock, and right now we have just been told that they are actually in extra turns right now. This one looks to be heading towards a draw there. But you're right, Simon. Kess Dissident Mage in Legacy, the other card that springs to mind when we think about official judge proxies. But throughout the weekend, my friends, if we do see a lot of Turbo Fog, you will see a lot of basic mountains that have been proxied as copies of Nexus of Fate. So expect to, yes, see it here, there, and everywhere. Teferi Emblem, good enough to get rid of this Angel of Invention now. But Nordzai may look to be just a little off the pace here.
So even if you take all the turns, the 5-turn rule still applies.
Yes.
So you are now fighting the clock on your own.
So hang on. Let's step back a bit here. So at the end of a time, regulation time, at a thing like this, there are 5 additional turns.
Independent of who takes them.
So it's 5 turns total. It's not 3 turns for you, 2 turns for me.
Yep.
It's 5 extra turns total.
The turns don't discriminate.
No. Whoever wants to take them,
They're there to
they're
for the taking.
They're there to be taken. They're there for the taking, Simon. They'll be plucked off the turn tree by anyone who's able to reach. Here's another Nexus of Fate. So we're going to have another turn taken by Nordzai. It looks like Von der Pelt may not have another turn left in this game.
But is there a way to win this? Is there only a single construct in play?
Single construct.
And Karn has been activated already or not?
This turn, unsure.
Because you don't need that many attacks and that many constructs to actually win the game. And there's still the chance maybe to go for Nissa. There's the Nissa in Wouter's hand. Turn 5, Nissa attacks for 10. So you only need the... Oh, he's still using Karn for value.
Okay, so getting another Nexus of Fate token here, card here, thanks to the...
well, we
the
have
Karn.
to see some. We have to see some constructs soon.
So this is turn number 3. Got 2 turns left here. Another Nexus of Fate. So another turn remaining here for Nordzai after this one. And Von der Pelt just can sit back on his heels. Away goes the Champion of Wits, thanks to the Teferi Emblem.
Nissa would come down with 2 counters on turn 3, so she goes to 4. On turn 4, she goes to 6. On turn 5, she attacks for 10. That's something. You have to deploy those threats.
So Nordzai can cast Nissa for more than that, however, surely next turn.
But he still has to take the extra turn. So the thing is, it doesn't help him if Thomas takes turn number turn number 5.
Number 5, okay. So Nissa, X equals 2. So untap 2 land.
No green source.
No. Oh, no green source. Oh, oops. That was a bit of a clunker there from Wouter Nordzai. As you can see, he's got plenty of forests. Didn't manage to leave any of them untapped to deploy his Nissa. Oops.
Thomas is going to snack on that juicy 1 match point.
So tasty as we see another construct. Wasn't there already an activation of Karn this turn, however? To put the Nexus of Fate in hand?
I thought so too.
I thought so too. It seemed like he may have already activated Karn this turn, I think.
We might have to check with the judge there. That's...
It does seem as though he did activate Karn twice this turn. But we've got the judges looking on, so, it may already be too late here to back this one up.
Because I was commenting on exactly that.
He used to put
unless there is an Oath of Teferi in
maybe off
in
screen.
play.
Yeah, perhaps.
If there is an Oath of Teferi, then Nissa might actually still be enough to win here.
Okay, apparently we're being told now from the floor that it was he took an extra turn very quickly at some point between activating the Karn to put the Nexus in and then make a construct. So
that's what I like to do sometimes. Just really quickly.
Really quick.
Untap draw.
Not going to enter into this discussion. Here's a Manglehorn now. Get rid of one of those servos.
Well, you have to be really quick.
I have no comment to make. You're a dangerous man, Simon Gertzen. Little tongue-in-cheek smile there. I won't be drawn. Karn, Sign of Urza now. Going downstairs. And we have another Manglehorn. So it looks like Nordzai might be going the old-fashioned way, trying to get 20 damage in across 2 turns.
I think he's getting there.
Is he really?
Well, I'm still confused about how many constructs there are or not, but...
So...
Can he attack for... Oh, Thomas... Thomas got turn 5.
At the final turn going to Thomas Von der Pelt, and he couldn't fill out that match slip any faster. And it looks like he's conceding. Okay, Thomas von der Pelt conceding to Wouter Nordzai there. It was very clear that Nordzai would have won the game if it had continued, but Thomas von der Pelt, after a rather long and drawn-out process getting to that position, finally gave up the match.
There were too many things to mention that I didn't understand about this match.
A lot of stuff to chew over and digest, ladies and gentlemen. Perhaps a second viewing of that match may answer some of the questions that are posed on everyone's minds there.
Or
in
not.
any case, or not, could go either way. In any case, Turbo Fog, it's been
Dominant.
dominant, utterly dominant, uncontested so far. We'll see if the fortune of the deck continues to wax in the way that we've seen it so far throughout GP Brussels. My friends, we're going to go to a break, but stick with us because on the other side of these ads, we'll be back live from Brussels. We'll see you then. And welcome back to the tournament floor here at GP Brussels. Riley Knight and Simon Gertzen with you. We've got some Time Walk magic to bring your way. It's a warm welcome to everyone around the world, but in particular, my mother, Loretta, back in Castlemaine. I know she's watching. She just got out of hospital. She's had an operation on her big sausagey fingers. And,
Hi, Riley's mum.
All the best to you at home, Mum. I do very much appreciate you tuning in, even though, broadly speaking, you have no idea what we're talking about here. Let's get underway with some Time Walk magic. As we said, we're going to jump into game number 2 here between Jonathan Dance and Christophe Gregoire. Christophe, fresh as well off a top 4 performance at the Pro Tour last weekend on white-blue control. So big stuff expected from him as well. We'll see how things go for him. Looks like red-black chain whirl are the order of the day here for Dance. Choosing to think well and truly inside the bun here. But hey, it's a tried and tested deck that gets the job done. Let's see how things go now between these two players. An early duress in game number 2 is good stuff from Dance.
Not going well for Gregoire. If you look at that, he's drawn 6 cards, and he's in his second turn. He was on the play. So that's a mulligan to 5. The only card draw spell in his hand is taken away, and he's stuck there with 5-drop, 5-drop, and 6-drop. If he draws 3 lands in a row, 2 lands in a row even, he's in good shape. Otherwise, I fear for his life here.
Duress continues to be just one of the best sideboard cards, Simon. In particular, out of the sideboards of these aggressive decks, from things like red-black, from green-black, because the 1 mana enables them to disrupt while still applying pressure, as opposed to something like Doomfall, which is better in the control lists because they just tend to want nice, clean answers that aren't so reliant on cost. Whereas decks like this, red-black, green-black, they're able to curve Duress into massive threats, like this one here, Chandra, at a relatively low cost.
Yep. And now Chandra can make mana for that Bowmat Courier, just sneaking it in there.
Bowmat Courier, as you say, entering the battlefield, and Gregoire without anything to say about it as well. So Dance is going to be able to refuel off of that 1/1 eventually.
Gregoire's hand is known. He's just drawn land, which is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But now
Ooh.
that would have been insane if he'd curve straight into Teferi or Lyra.
Yeah. But as it is now here, old Dance continues this revolution and looks to put himself further and further ahead. What are you doing with Chandra here?
Well, I think you don't have to do much to.
Ooh.
So I'm going to tell you a secret.
Tell me
Robbie.
something.
I think that the mana ability on Chandra is severely underrated.
Yes.
And the exile ability is severely overrated.
Yes.
Because now, sure, you've gotten an extra card, but you had great cards in your hand to begin with. If that fizzles, if that is just a land or something you don't want,
You've just done
you've basically
nothing.
not gotten much. Now, of course, hitting the Phoenix is great there.
But this is what we're talking about, about results-oriented thinking. If you tick Chandra up, hit the Phoenix, you go, oh, brilliant, I should do this every time because it's always so good. No.
Well, we've also been conditioned from childhood to care about card advantage.
Yes. I know that your parents had a very strict regiment of tests, of quizzes, of exams,
I was
playtesting.
trained very hard.
Yes.
From the very beginning.
Yes.
My mother had a book of some Russian guy with how to...
Some treatise on card advantage, yep. You're reading Next Level Deck Building by Patrick Chapin the moment it was released.
So now Dan's a little bit more in the tank here.
And we are going to speed things up as a result here because we do need to get to our next round as we see Glory bring off the top. He's making fools of both of us, Simon.
No, it's obviously great if you can do that.
If you just hit the perfect cards every time. We see an attack now, some of them going at Teferi. See what Gregoire has to say about it. Seal away. That's a nice answer to the Phoenix, but Dance's attack ultimately keeps Teferi off the battlefield. So good stuff.
I assume that Dance just attacked Teferi with everything here, not risking anything. He's so far ahead. He has a Chandra. He has a Bowmat Courier with cards under it. That's actually another thing. You have an active Bowmat Courier, so you want to empty your hand.
Yeah.
Right? It's just not... It doesn't make sense to me to always exile the top card of your library because you're somehow generating too much card advantage.
And your cards are playing again. They're at odds with each other at this stage because
And
you're not emptying your hand for cards like Hazard and Bowmat Courier.
And you're giving away the one thing that you have going for you, which is actually the choice which cards to deploy at which stage, right?
Yeah.
This way you're just deploying whatever is on top of your library.
So, the hits keep coming for Dance now as a Goblin Chain Whirler comes down, cycles away the Canyon Slough as well after Gregoire seals away the Glory Bringer. But a very greedy +1 on the Chandra instead of just ultimate. I think you just ultimate as soon as you can here. But Dance, come on, mate, you got to do it. Snap it off. That's just game over. No one can beat a Chandra emblem.
Yep, especially not white-blue control.
Okay, all right. Finally, Jonathan Dance.
Ooh,
Hello.
except for white-blue control.
Oh my goodness, we're just being... They're running rings around us. Here's a Glory Bringer now. So Dan's ultimately vindicated in going all the way up to 8 there. And Gregoire with the disallow. Clutch disallow there to prevent the Chandra emblem from completely overrunning the game. The problem is he's still dead. Still dead to the Chain Whirler. Still dead to the Glory Bringer. Lyra Dawnbringer here.
Well, that Lyra has been known since turn 1 or 2.
And it's something that Dance has a plan for here.
He has Unlicensed Disintegration still in his deck after sideboarding.
And that is enough there for Gregoire to extend the hand. Both of the Belgian players featured in our top 8 at Pro Tour 25th anniversary going down in round number 3 here on home soil.
Top 4 even.
Top 4, excuse me. Yes, indeed. We do have, of course, Branko Nayrink waiting in the wings. He was the final piece of that particular Belgian puzzle that made it into our top 4 last weekend. And maybe we'll get to check in with him in round number 4 because he's coming off his 3 buys. My friends, right now, however, we are going to go to some ads. Stick around. On the other side of this, we have Tim and Raf subbing into the feature match, or into the booth here. And so we'll see you back here in Brussels in just a few moments.